We got down here? I see Rex Cole. Hello, how are you all? Good to see you. Thanks for joining. I see Sharon Clark down below and Mrs. Austin. All right. Glad you're always on. And Charles, what do you say? We rock and roll
Yeah,
here?
let's go ahead and get it going.
All right. All righty. Well, once again, it is just so great to see everybody. And this has just been a great venue to just get together again. Seems like each time is getting better and better. So I want to welcome all of you to our sixth exclusive event of the four Olympic leaping legends and another very special guest. I'm Lewis Johnson, glad to be a host again. And I think the first thing I can think about is we actually had an indoor season, right? We had four meets with the American Track League, plus the one in Staten Island, which was great. I missed it because I had this little COVID 19 positive test thing. Thankfully, I was asymptomatic, and so was my family, and I didn't infect anybody at the meet because I would not have known had it not been for the protocol. But we have reconvened here once again to discuss how to achieve excellence. All right. And we're going to work on that topic again today. And I think the apropos way to really drill down on it, Charles, I think you mentioned getting over obstacles. And actually, it might be
Yes.
dominating obstacles because
Yeah.
that's what our guest did, right?
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody in advance for not recording this. Of course, this event will be available probably in a week or so. Charles will release a link to it and you'll have it that you can, of course, shuttle anywhere. So I always have to start with welcoming Charles Austin in. He's the reason why we are doing this. It was his idea. And of course, we've done this now for the sixth time. So Charles, how are you? How are things down post cold ice and snow? And how excited are we to have another very special guest?
Yeah. So all is well. Here in Texas, we had a little crazy weather, but all is good. Everything is back to normal. And other than that, just very happy to see you all again, to have Roger, as our special guest. This guy here is unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always looked at Roger as a big brother and just
Mhm.
always very pleasant, great spirit. And I'm just very happy to have him on.
Thank you.
Agreed.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And so, as Charles mentioned, our special guest was an incredibly special athlete. He went through the span of time, everybody, where he dominated. I mean, literally dominated the hurdles on a global basis. And it was about fast times, it was about world records, and it was about Olympic gold twice. So let me remind everybody of what our leaping legends have accomplished, some special moments, as well as Roger Kingdom grabbing one of those goals. And let me roll that video for you right now. The one and only JJK.
AJK.
Jenny Harrison, who's having some technical issues, who we hope will join us soon in the triple jump. And now he banks his American record. And of course, Charles Austin. Final jump for gold. And then what you were talking about, Roger, Bob Beeman's very special moment. Lord have mercy. And then Roger, two-time Olympic champion in the hurdles. Roger, y'all had those suits going with the caps, right?
Tony Campbell's idea.
Tony Campbell's idea.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Just gone.
Oh my gosh.
Look at that. Look at that. Crush the field.
Oh, man. Those are the days.
Those were the days, huh?
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Well, Roger, it's great to see these flashback moments. We have one more we'll share a little bit later, but as we welcome you in, what's it like for you to watch this again and see those track and field moments that live forever?
When I watch those films, they're so unbelievable. I look back and I say to myself, did I actually really do those things? When you're young and you're inspired and you have a vision, okay? And most of the time, our dream become our vision for our life. And we just start chasing it at all costs sometimes. And in the process of chasing it, we don't think about anything else. Okay, I don't care how many accomplishments you might achieve, whether it's winning an NCAA championship, turning around, winning a Pan American Game championship. It doesn't matter how many you win. Instantly, you don't actually gloat in it because your mind is automatically adjusting to the next one. So you're trying to figure out, what can I do next? So as you go from championship to championship, from record to record, until all of a sudden retirement, then life, family, kids, and everything else, you get old, you look back at those things and you're in awe. It's like, did I really do that? Because it's the first time that you can actually sit back and see yourself and actually see the things that you accomplished. And when you look at it, it's just, to me, not because I did it, it's just unbelievable. I can't even believe that I'd done that. And I'm looking at what all of the young men and women are doing right now, and it's just remarkable. So trust me, sometimes I sit by myself and I look at those films and I get teary-eyed. I get emotional because I'm just so thankful that I was able to do it, because I sit back in disbelief. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, because it was so amazing, those things.
Yeah, incredible.
Excuse me,
And
Luke.
yes.
Ronaldo is on as well.
Oh, is he?
All
Ronaldo,
right.
where are you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I
Yes.
can hear you. Hey, man, welcome. Glad to see you here.
Yo, man.
My sincere apologies. I'm multitasking. I'm watching my Terps play Michigan State. That's why I don't have the video on, and I'm listening and watching you, so I can contribute. I just didn't want you to see my
Man,
eyes.
Skeets, you can get a replay of that game. You need to be on this thing where we can see you and talk. Come on now. All right. If you got to do it like that, that's fine. But I'm glad to see you there. Glad to see you here.
Skeets,
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Ladies.
what's up?
There he is. There you go.
Congratulations.
There you go.
Hey,
Roger.
There he is.
that's the man that I chased. That's the man that I chased so many years, that made me who I was, because he set the standard and I went after him. But when I got there, he went to football. So then I came from football to track. So I'm like,
Yeah, but now you have what I have. You got that bowl ring. So
hey, I am so happy to join you, man. That's such an amazing feeling, man. Unbelievable.
Oh, Ronaldo, you froze on us? Oh,
Magic.
okay. There he is. So Ronaldo, I don't think you got to see the video, but I played back Roger's gold from, was that 88? Was that 84?
88.
88.
When you think about what he, listen, I know that you all operate in tremendous humility, so I can ask you about Roger. When you look at what he accomplished at the big meets in Zurich, and of course on the Olympic stage, what are your thoughts about his career and what he achieved on the track? I mean, you guys were just, you were in a special era of hurdling.
Well, the race was never over until it was over when Roger Kingdom was in the race. Roger wasn't the greatest first 3 or 4 hurdles, but those last 5 to 6, you know, and he put fear in all of us, because the finish line could never get there quickly enough. And lo and behold, Roger was always there, and just a tremendous competitor. Fearless, would not be denied. Probably illustrate a little bit more confidence sharing with you right now, in order to be as great as he was, which it does take, that intestinal fortitude. But he knew what he wanted to do and what he needed to accomplish, and he did it. And to win the gold medal twice, the first one, everybody can say, well, he was lucky, fortunate, but coming in with the mark bearer on your back in 88, he left no doubts.
Yeah, that's all. Roger, what does that mean to hear that from Ronaldo, man, the guy who you said you chased?
You know what? We've had several conversations. We also swing the club against each other, and the competition still goes on and on. But anyhow, to know that as a high schooler, young guy, and seeing that Ronaldo was out there doing his thing and setting the stage and the standard for all of us, and I started chasing him at that time, it was definitely touching, and it was gratifying to hear those words from him. He actually gave my induction speech for the Hall of Fame. And you know what? he had the best quote and the best jab at me. And, you know, he talked about Roger was never short on talking trash, which I thought that I was quiet a lot of the time. The more I talked was only when I was nervous, okay? But he ended it by saying, but he had me on his wall. And I did. I nobody could say anything. They just laughed, they applauded, and everything else. And I bowed down to him because I did. I had that Zurich poster, man, on my wall. And to be honest with you, it's still at my mom's house. And she said, "Baby, you remember this?" I said, "Yeah, that's the picture that Renato was talking about when I got inducted in the Hall of Fame." So,
Wow.
but to hear him actually say those things, you know what? From one of the best ever, it was great. All of this stuff where people are talking about this one is the GOAT, that one is the GOAT. You got to look at the era. That man did things with this event that none of us could imagine. All we could do is just try to chase and emulate. And that's all I did.
And you both did it with such
driving on
greatness.
the side of the road is that big old American flag. I see it.
Oh,
That is so beautiful.
Somebody need to mute their
Oh, there's a
phone.
lot of people on here.
And,
No, any day like this, it just stands up.
Second on
Might
time.
have did it.
I didn't hear that.
yeah. I think we're good now.
Lewis is talking, but he's on mute.
Okay, hold on.
Lewis,
Yeah.
no, you still muted. There
I
you go.
shouldn't be. You got me there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's strange. All right. So I was just saying there were so many times when you guys lined up against each other, you know, greatness against greatness. And I think about the Zurich final, which could have been an Olympic final, right? And what was it about you all never having fear or really playing games or jockeying back in those days to line up against each other and run?
Well, I can say, you know, I was technically, I guess, kind of on the other side of my career when Roger was on the upswing of his. And I never was, but one of my greatest concerns, if you will, as an athlete was that I never wanted the record to be broken on me, you know? I know records are broken and other people in the race.
What do you mean?
And I always said, if God, I hope I never are in a race where somebody breaks my record on me. And as it turned out, a lot of people don't know this, but there was a contract dispute, negotiation dispute the night that Roger broke the world record. I had just come back to the sport from being in football, and my agent, QB, of course, thought that the offer was insulting to me. And so we decided not to run, and if God had have it, Roger broke the world record in that race, and I happened to be watching.
Wow, I did not know that.
And I wasn't in the race. So I never got to feel what it felt like, not only to get beat by him, but to have my record broken by him. And so I sit back nowadays and I go, man, how did that feel? Because I broke the record on people, you know?
Right.
And I never put myself in shoes. But I knew when I was away from the sport, my greatest fear was Greg Foster or somebody who was going to break the world record away. And then when I got back, I said, man, I hope they don't break the world record with me in the race. And so I got to watch the record being broken. It was bittersweet, but I guess in the aftermath, Roger, I couldn't have been happier for somebody who ended up, you know, breaking it and being the Olympic champion. And I'm just so glad that I got to watch it as opposed to feel it.
Well, for me, one of the things that I loved was that when you knew that Renato was in the race, when you knew that Greg Foster was in the race, you knew you had to be ready. Okay, you couldn't half step. Win, lose, or draw, still you knew it was going to be a good race. And those are the kind of races that I actually live for. Nothing against any of my other competitors, but it's just that there was just certain people that you knew set the standard. And if you wanted to be a part of that standard, then you had to actually make noise with those guys, okay? I can go out and I could dominate and win all of these other races, but unless you go out and you run and compete well and sometimes beat those guys who were setting the standards, nobody was going to care about you. So whenever I was in the race with Ronaldo Niemeyer, of course, man, he had a bullseye on his back, and I'm going after that bullseye. And that was just my drive at that time. Anybody who was on the top of that list, okay, all time, top 10 ranking, whoever it was, I wanted to be like them. So I went after him. And that was my drive. That's why I never actually looked back at anything that I've accomplished, because I was chasing those guys ahead of me. So as I started to actually get mentioned with them, then what do? Well, the thing I wanted to do is now go one step above. And that's what we all wanted to do. He wanted to actually take that race to a level that nobody else has ever done, and he did. So all of a sudden now, okay, if you don't take it beyond him, you're going to be second best. It took us years. Count it now. It took us years before any of us can actually break that blessed barrier. But finally, when we broke that barrier of 13 seconds, now you look at it. They're running what, sub 13 races in the 110 hurdles like it's nothing now. Whereas when he set that standard, man, we chased that standard, man, like we were starving kids, okay? To finally, we were able to get it. So my kudos will always be to him. I golf with him, so he know that I appreciate him, even though we challenge each other all the time and we talk trash on each other. But basically, I want you to know, Skeets, how much I really appreciate you, bro. All right, always do. And it wouldn't have been me if it hadn't been for you setting the standards. I'm telling you. And you know what? You saved me in so many other ways, because I was an angry young man, and athletics, man, helped me out of it.
Well, we all get in it to leave a mark and to make a difference. And I think if I was patriotic at all, which I was when it came to track and field, I always said the world record belonged in the U.S. We were the best to ever do it. I felt in my heart. And so when the world record was in the hands of an American, the Cuban, and then, whoever else, Chinese, Liu Xiao, Mary came and finally got it back. I was just ecstatic, because I've always felt that the birthplace of hurling has always been the United States.
That's awfully deep. And Ronaldo, I have the world record race from Zurich queued up, but out of respect for the conversation and for both of you and what you've accomplished, I'm going to play it later, because I think there's some more important things we can touch on as we continue to think about the opportunity to inspire some people as we have these conversations. Roger, you just said something that's very powerful. You just said that athletics, as we know it around the world, and track and field, as we know it here in the States, saved you because you were an angry young Black kid. Can you just touch on that just a bit? Because we're still passing through a period of time where we've got the COVID pandemic, which is overlapping with all the racial tension and unrest in this country, and everything is all connected together. And sport, for many, is a way to exercise that anger and frustration and feeling. And a lot of that's being lost because of the pandemic. We've had schools dropping programs. What was it about sports that helped you? What were your issues, and why did this sport help you get through?
Louis, I was a ticking time bomb. Okay. I was always told growing up that I'd never be this, I'd never be that. My brother and sister were superstars, Roy Kingdom and Lorianne Kingdom. They were superstars. But people kept saying that I'll be nothing. I was this skinny kid following in the footsteps of my brother and my sister who couldn't do wrong. I had a lot of crazy dreams. I had outlandish dreams. I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be that. I'm going to be this. Okay. There were so many things I went, oh boy, you ain't going to be nothing. So the more you hear that, the more frustrated I got that nobody's hearing me. Nobody care about Roger. Okay. So I was acting out. I was doing things. I was getting in trouble because nobody cared anyway, I felt. So from getting in trouble, getting kicked out of school, getting my tail whipped, and all of those kind of things, man, I had all of this resentment and anger built up that I was a ticking time bomb. It wasn't until we moved from Florida to Georgia that I started running track that I actually started to find my niche. After I started to find my niche and I made the varsity team as a freshman, that was the beginning. Then I joined the football team and I started excelling in football, but I had a rocky road with football until my junior year. I really excelled my junior year. I had some difficulties there with the coach and got kicked off the team. And after getting kicked off the team, then we just actually sat down, we discussed it, we negotiated different things and so forth. While at the same time now, my track career was blossoming. Okay. I had already been multiple state champions in the hurdles, high jump, and discus. While at the same time now, trying to actually be this football player like my brother was, because that was my first love. So in my senior year, man, I rushed for 144 yards, okay, on 148 carries. I forgot the number of touchdowns that I had at that time. I was recruited by 30 plus schools, Division I schools for football, and Division IIs, I can't remember it. My mom kept a box of all the letters, okay, of all the schools. It got so bad that it was almost like Blindside, where I actually totaled my dad's car. I flipped it over and wrecked it, okay, because of the pressure with the people coming down to my house. Literally, two coaches actually stayed at my mother's house and not go to the hotels when they was trying to recruit me. So the pressure was so bad that it was quite a challenge, but it gave me direction. Sports gave me direction at that time, because in playing football, it gave me an opportunity to actually have that physical contact, to work out a lot of that resentment and everything else that I had physically. And the more that resentment I worked out, the more I started aligning myself with now the vision that I had for my life, pressing forward, talking to the press now in a positive way, talking to my family in a positive way, getting my family to start to actually see who I was and starting to believe in me. And then when I went off to college, okay, when I went off to college, they said that I wasn't going to do anything, that I was going to get there, that I was going to flunk out, okay, wasn't going to make it, going to come back begging to get back in school somewhere. Well, my mission when I got to the University of Pittsburgh was not just to perform in athletics alone, but to actually get my degree. The long and the short was I excelled in football. I took a red shirt and I ran track for 1 year. That 1 year that I ran track after red shirt football, I turned around, won the Pan American Games after winning the NCAAs, finished up 8th in the world as a sophomore. That's when I knew that I had a chance to actually make the Olympic team. And further than all the rest of the history that everybody know about Roger, I went back after my career and got my degree. Once I got my degree that I promised my mother I would do, I later on, a few years later, got my master's degree at California University of Pennsylvania while I was working there. Through all of that was because I had the vision for myself, and I used athletics as the catalyst to help me get there. The road wasn't straight, okay? There was a lot of the times I wanted to go in a different way, but the Lord sometimes had another way. So he would close so many doors for you to push you in the direction that he wants you to be in. And the last thing that I'm gonna say about that is that I was talking to Charles a couple of weeks ago, and I let him know that while I was at California University, I built the track and field program there. I started with 4 women and 11 men. I mean, I'm sorry, 4 men and 11 women. And I built that to the point where I had to cap my men because I had too many. And I had, between combined sports, indoor, outdoor, and cross country, I had over 150 women and helped the school balance the gender equity numbers at that school. Not the dollars, but the numbers. Before I left there, I applied to over 100 plus Division I schools for an assistant job or head coaching job. They all turned me down, okay? Being that they all turned me down, didn't even get a call back, all right? That was the Lord telling me, I don't want you there. From that, I get a call from Bruce Arians, somebody that I interned with when he was at the Cleveland Browns. He was the offensive coordinator. I get a call from him asking him, he asking me, how would I like to join his staff? I said, are you crazy? Is that a trick question? Heck yeah, I'll join your staff. Now I'm moving back to my first love, my first dream, football. And from that, I stayed with him. I ended up leaving when he left. I went to UCF only for 6 months, knowing that it was an interim job to get back home. But when he took the job at Tampa, he called me again, asked me to join his staff. And now I got a Super Bowl ring. The championship that I chased all my life, okay, finally got it. That's why I said that a lot of the times, okay, when you have a vision for your life and you align your vision with what the vision the Lord had for you, okay, then amazing things can happen. You never know what it's going to be. So when a door closes in your face, okay, yeah, we're human. We're going to react to it. But when you react to it, brush yourself off and know that, you know what, something greater is for
Mhm.
you. That's why that door closed, because you have to now move to that next opportunity and know that the sky's the limit as to how far you can go when you're walking by faith. And I'll shut up with that.
You don't have to stop. I mean, you're dropping so
No.
much wisdom here. It's unbelievable. And I hope that everybody's ears are really open. I mean, I hope your ears and your soul are open because you dropped a lot of wisdom there, Roger. And amazing because as all of us have known you through your competitive spirit or what have you, we didn't know all this. I didn't know all this. I mean, it's just unbelievable that those things happen. So I'll ask you this, and then I should open it up to the panel is for them to ask some questions. With everything you experienced, you talked about the anger and all the challenges you dealt with growing up, and how the sport saved you and gave you that direction and I guess some format in your life to compete. Um, Everything you've been through, how much does that help you help the young men that are walking into these pro football locker rooms? Because just because they're pro athletes doesn't mean they don't have challenges, issues, problems. And now, how can you relate to them and help them not just become stronger, faster, what have you, to be able to play the game, but also become better men, better human beings?
This is a new generation. It's a generation of fast food athletes, athletes who want things done right now, who don't want to put in the work. For those who do put in the work, then all of a sudden they have a freak injury and they on IR. The very first thing that I go to them and I say, the vision hadn't changed. Okay. That door might be closed right now, but it's not permanently shut. Your vision hadn't changed. It's up to you now to continue to push toward your vision to have it manifest itself in your life. A lot of these kids, man, they wasn't even born when I was doing my thing. So whenever their position coaches go back and tell you, YouTube him, or no, in their position meetings, they put my video up to show them who I am. And they say, listen to him. So what I do is now the first thing that I break down to him, all the successes that people have seen me have, well, what they failed to realize was I had success at the Olympic Games. I had success at the Pan American Games. I had some success at the NCAA. But after that major triumph, I've always gotten hurt and had to actually battle my way back. After I battled back from breaking the world record in 89, 90, I had a good year. But then all of a sudden, what did I do? I blew my ACL out playing a pickup game of basketball before the 91 World Championships. And after doing that, you got everybody offering your contracts. I mean, the sky's the limit as to how much you can actually make at that time. I had moved from just being an average hurler to superstardom, up there with Carl Lewis and the level that Ben Johnson was, and could not reap any of it because of why? You got injured. So it's all of a sudden, now you have the world handed to you, but you can't make it to the promised land because why? You're doing something crazy and you got hurt. So the hardest thing was trying to forgive myself. So when I go back and I share those stories with a lot of those guys and let them know that you're still on IR, you still got a contract, you still have a life, you can still now make it to the next level. That's why I tell them the vision hadn't changed. And even for me, even though everything was just constantly just cut like the umbilical cord, man, my vision was the only thing that kept me alive. My
Yeah.
vision and my faith is because you know what? Even though I was injured, even though I'm sitting in a dark place, even though I struggled, even though I depleted my finances trying to hang on and get back out there again, and also paying medical expenses and so forth, I never lost sight of my vision. I kept working until I started to pile that all back up and put myself in a position to be on top, to share these stories with others. So that's why, you know what, anyone that I have an opportunity to share my testimony with, I do. So when I do have a chance to talk to these players, oh, they listen. Even the older ones right now, they listen. And one of the guys who listened more than anybody else was a good old friend of mine, Larry Fitzgerald. I'm
Mm.
very tight with him, played a lot of golf with him. He went through a lot of injuries and so forth. He would even ask me questions, Roger, how you handle this and how you handle that. And I say, Larry, you've been there too many times before, man. You know, listen, where you want to be, okay? where you see yourself, whether it's on the field or off the field. Where do you see yourself? You start now fixating your thoughts on that. And before you know it, you're not going to think about what you're dealing with. You're going to think about where you want to go. And the trainer going to have to start telling you, slow down, slow down, slow down.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's your directive, is to make sure that you have enough fire and desire to chase your vision and your dream. Then now you're not thinking about having a pity party, sitting where you are saying, why me?
Well, I think I'm going to put some signs up around the house right after we get off this thing. Put your eyes on where you want to be. I mean, I've heard that right now a bunch of times, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. For all of you who are just joining, we are speaking with the incomparable Roger Kingdom, two-time Olympic gold medalist in the 110-meter hurdlers, former world record holder, and he is a part of our 6th edition of our show here. And of course, we're glad that everybody's on. Any of you who have questions, please start putting them in the chat. And Jackie, Bob, somebody here want to jump in with a question from our team? Anybody want to ask a question? Bob, I know you had a couple beforehand.
One very interesting question. Roger has been blessed to make a transition into from being physically active in track and field, but also in football. But what is very interesting about it is that while you've made your transition into football and professional, you see a lot of, and I want to be somewhat specific, of African American athletes that are coming in that have never dealt with how to manage a bank book or how to handle their money. And by the end of their career, if they last long enough, that they come out very, very poor, and they're back in the same situation that they were in the very beginning. And so in this day and time, have we found programs, or how do we save these young, great athletes the exposure of being in a situation like that?
I think the biggest thing is to get most of these young players to actually start believing in the player development director. Those are the people that are set aside to actually create programs and to put these young players in a position to be successful, to go back and to finish their degrees, also to put their wives or their significant others in great position to also be successful. But one of the things that you find is a lot of these young African-American men, they go to the league and all of a sudden you dump millions of dollars in their lap and they never actually had anything before. They go on a spending spree. First of all, somebody in their family needs to assign an agent, somebody, and not let them blow this money the way that they're blowing. I see some guys, some first-year guys come in, and all of a sudden they have the Bentleys, the Mercedes-Benz, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, like if they're a 10 or 15-year vet. Those guys who've been in the league 10 to 15 years, they earned the right to do that. They didn't do it initially. So I've talked to a lot of them in regards to that. Dude, hey, listen, it's okay to get one nice car. Okay, if you want to go get a Bentley, get one Bentley. That's it, man. But save the rest of your money. You know how much a Bentley run? Those Bentley, the cheapest one is about $180-some thousand, and the minimum in the league is $495. Okay, so when you get in there as an undrafted free agent and you turn around and you're blowing it trying to get a Bentley, half your money is gone on one car. Where you gonna live? Okay, how you gonna feed yourself? And all of these things. These are the things that I discuss with them. I show them the long-term picture. And once I show them the long-term picture, some of them get it. Our goal is to make sure out of that 10, we at least touch 1, 2, or 3. If we can touch 1, 2, or 3, that 1, 2, or 3 is going to talk trash and try to touch their buddies. So now we're reaching even more. But I do think that on the outside, there has to be a separate program set up by the league itself, is to help manage these young men. Not necessarily putting a grip on their money, but help them in cases of learning how to now set their money aside. They don't have the pension fund anymore, okay, which they used to have. So that's why you see so many of the older players, once they retire, fall on hard time, but none of these young guys should be falling on hard times with the money that's in the sport now. I'll give you an example. Look at track and field. We went through an explosion of cash, but then they cut back on the cash. Now, when they cut back on it, look at it. There's very few guys that can really go out there and make a lot of money and make a living on it. Okay? So it's my hope is that these guys now do the right things with their finances to the point where when they leave the sport, it was a jump start for them on their life and for their family as well. I would say this, one of the guys, and there's two guys that I'm very close with right now, okay, that, look, I'm still learning from them. One of the guys is Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald off the field is doing much better than he ever did on the field. And Dominican Sue, we already know who his mentor is. His mentor is Warren Buffett. These two guys, man, the very first thing that both of them would say is, put yourself in a position to have your money, make money while you sleep. That's the key to it all. Not to all of a sudden worry about, okay, oh man, how much money do I have left? Because it's being taken away while you sleep. You don't ever want that feeling.
One more question real quick. You also, the transition that you've made from track and field to football, I'd like to know, do you talk about, and particularly many of the football players have had background in track and field, but all of a sudden after high school, they go into college, they get into football. But the second part of it is that they lose the interest where there could be a possibility that they could be another Roger Kingdom, or they could be another great sprinter or something like that. But we don't talk much about what the potential of track and field we should have an exciting career from a marketing standpoint. That track and field is just as great as football, basketball, or whatever, but we just don't really hit it. But something has to happen where we can say that, Jackie did very well, Kenny did very well, Charles did very well in the sport financially. And so I think if we had more people like you, Roger, to talk to athletes to say that, hey, it's okay to go back into track and field. There's a great potential back there, but we don't talk about the potential of money that they can make a sizable living.
Well, one of the things that I noticed that was happening years ago, even shortly after I retired, was that our federation, okay, not necessarily laying blame, but we put all of our money and our resources in grassroots programs, which, so to speak, was our youth, our young kids. Well, if you're dumping all of your money into the young kids, the program's there for track and field, you train them and bring them along, then all of a sudden, before they get in junior high school, they start taking an interest in basketball, football, and soccer, but yet you invested all of this money and you lose them, okay? You lose them to all of these other sports, okay? Just to shift gears and move forward, once they get out of high school, okay, all of those tracksters, they're going for what? They're going for bright lights, because bright lights bring on sponsorship. It bring on glamour. It bring on dollars. So they're going to football, baseball, or basketball. They're moving away now, okay? So track and field, once again, we're shafted, we're lost, okay? None of us can sit back and actually blame them if they're gifted enough to be able to do that. As they do that, okay, then we're losing in track and field. One of the things that we have to do in track and field is now, it's not like it was in the early 80s through my days and through the days that a lot of the people that's on this call right now went through, where we were blessed while we were in college, is to be very, very successful on an international level. You don't have a lot of athletes that way now, but you can, because a lot of them are late bloomers. So if your grassroots program were your collegiate athletes who met a standard who have the possibility without the stress of school is to make it to the next level without being tempted to use PEDs and so forth, then you should invest your time and your money in them. They can be your next generation of Roger Kingdom, Jackie Joyner's, or Ronaldo Nehemiah's, or Charles Austin. They can be your next generation of super studs, but you don't do that, so you lose them. So now the transition goes to other sports. I can tell quickly when I have an athlete, okay, that they bring in to train or the workout, I can tell them that kid has a track background. So I go talk to him. I can look at them and I can tell how they're running and everything else. And that's my job. So I look at them. And next thing you know, it's like, well, who you run for? And they give me the whole rundown and the whole story. But then that's when I start critiquing them and telling them the things they need to do now to get better. Okay. But even with football and those guys having a track background, okay, dipping off a little bit, the hardest thing is you don't have many coaches like myself in the league is to help those guys with the track background sustain. They go to a lot of other strength coaches without a speed background. And after their first or second year in the league, then you're wondering why they're not running as fast as they used to. There's nobody who can train them the way that they need to be trained to continue to get better. That's one of the reasons why Bruce Arians brought me on his staff. He saw what I was capable of doing when I retired in Cleveland, when I took a bunch of his older guys like Kevin Johnson, Quincy Morgan, Dennis Nullcutt, and those guys, and had those guys running better than they did when they first got there, even though they had been in the league a little bit. When he saw that and we made the playoffs for the first time, the team got back as an expansion team, then he said that, you know what, I got to keep you around. So that's one of the reasons why when he got the head coaching position in Arizona, he wanted me to come down and join his staff. And that's why when we was in Arizona, we had people getting downfield with his no risk it, no biscuit program or SALT program. And the same thing there at Tampa Bay. So that's what we're doing. So I know it was a long way to get around it, but that's why we're losing people in track and field. They're going to the glamour. Once they actually get to the glamour, some of the guys can't keep the luster because there's nobody around to help train them. But that's my job. And I'm glad it's my job because it keeps me paid.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Roger, we're going to go to some rapid fire questions. All right. A couple from me, and then I have a couple that have been sent through the chat. First of all, rapid fire. I know that you talked a lot about, getting guys ready and the amount of time spent during the football season to get people prepared. But people always see the game and then they see the moment when you win. What was it like to be on the field and absorb that moment of being a Super Bowl champion and you helped the team get there? What was that like?
Okay, once again, to date back to all of my Olympic experience and everything else, okay? Yeah. The minute you win that Olympics, you got that 30 seconds of like, yeah, powwow, celebrate.
Yeah.
As soon as you celebrate, that's over. What's next? I celebrated on the field. I jumped up and down and I went and sat on the bench after jumping up and down for like the next 45 minutes trying to figure out where do I go from here? That was my lifelong dream. I won the Olympic gold medals. I broke the world record. And now the thing that I've chased was a championship. And the granddaddy of all championships in the world is the Super Bowl championship. So I sat there for about 40 minutes wondering, where do I go now? And you know who summed that up for me? Bruce Arians summed it up. He said, you know what? We're going to win again, back to back. So now I'll be the first person in history to have 2 Super Bowl rings, 2 gold medals.
Love it. That's awesome. Right away on the field as confetti still falling, you're already thinking about what's next. That's a champion. All right. So here's a question from Philip Bondi, my friend from Zurich, who we talked to earlier before we got on. He says you won 2 Olympic gold medals. You broke the world record. You were the world indoor champion, but it took you until 1995 at age 33 to win your first world outdoor championship medal. He says, what was the comparable feeling to the successful of being at the beginning of a career, and because that came at the end of your career after a lot of injuries? Can you compare the two?
Well, one correction there. I didn't win the outdoor world, but
he said you
the one thing that I could say about, excuse me?
He just said you medaled. He didn't say you won.
Okay. Yeah. The one thing that I could say about that is that world championship bronze medal ranked just as high as any of those gold medals that I have. The reason being is that as I gave you the story earlier in my career, right after I came off of that high of winning, I always got injured. So when the world championship came right after the Olympics, I could never make it because I was always injured. And that frustrated me. So in 95, when I won the nationals, coming back off the reconstructed knee surgery, well, actually two surgeries, and reconstructed was the second one, to actually win the championship, make my first outdoor world championship team, and then to medal. Oh my God, I was so ecstatic. And first of all, I was what, I think 34 years old too, running with the young guys. Man, I was so elated that that one bronze medal, okay, is still sitting right there on the shelf with all the gold.
And that was at the 95 Worlds in Gothenburg, Sweden, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that was a great world championships. We had so much fun in that place. Oh my gosh. All
I
right,
loved it.
yeah. Another question. This is from Sue Humphrey. She says the opportunity to compete overseas has been limited. Compared to the 80s and 90s. I guess through your experience, you were part of all that. I remember Ronaldo. I remember being on the plane with Skeets, either going over or coming back. We were always on TWA. I remember I got my first business class ride, man. I didn't know anything about first and business class. We were on TWA and coach didn't care, on the plane going to compete. Anyway, there were so many meets, lots of appearance fee money. What can you say about the way that the circuit itself has changed in the way that the time we were all running?
Well, the one thing that I say right now is that, as Mr. Beeman alluded to earlier, we have to figure out a way to get more athletes involved in track and field. You can't have one solo. One solo don't make a meet. Okay. We had back in the early 80s, okay, all the way through to the early 90s, we had a group of people collectively competing against each other that made it exciting. So when they lined up, you never knew who was going to win. That put money in the sport. When you have one guy going out breaking the world record, and then you have three young guys or four other young guys that you never ever heard of are collegiates in the race, nobody wants to pay to see that. So people start pulling the sponsorship money. Then meets start canceling. Then teams start canceling. So from that, that was the downfall of track and field. So what we need to do now is continue to figure out a grassroots program to help keep our young collegiates who want to compete in track and field around. Stop losing them to all of these other sports. Stop making them quit to go work. Figure out a way to keep them around. That's why you're getting paid the big dollar sitting up in the federation, man. Do something about this, because if you don't do something about it, my legacy, Skeet's legacy, Jackie's legacy, Mr. Beeman's legacy, everybody on this panel, our legacy is just going to disappear with the sport. So we have to figure this out.
And I think there's another issue too now is there's going to be a new formatted way to bring events to television. And I can tell you from my side, I'm paying a lot of attention to that. I watch what's happening in the Caribbean. There are a lot of excellent meets that happen down there that are not getting on the air, and I'm working on that. But I think we also have to find another way, a less expensive way, to bring events, meets from other parts of the world at a cheaper way to show the talent that's coming from everywhere. Hasn't the U.S. track and field collegiate system been the training grounds and preparation grounds for a lot of Caribbean athletes who will then compete for their teams, right? So we need to be able to show that those meets, I think, from these different countries, as well as show more meets here in the United States where American kids can get a chance to get some shine. And again, bring the names and bring their performances up so that it doesn't just explode and become the most important thing every 4 years at the Olympics and then go off the cliff after that. I've never understood that. All right, here's another question. This was from my friend in Brazil, from Sao Paulo, Edno de Souza. He says, if track and field is the base of all sports, he's talking about running, why don't we have any professional leagues in the United States? What do you think, Raj?
If track and field is the base for all professional sport,
if running itself is the base for all, sport, why don't we have professional leagues here in the States?
Oh my God. I mean, that's a good one. It's basically hard to answer that one. It's one of the things that we've been pushing for many, many years, okay, is to actually have a league so that we didn't have to travel all the time overseas and everything else. But just to sum it up, one of the things that we felt was the culprit is corporate America and our society like big dollars. And whenever they start talking about this guy signing a $450 million contract, okay, and this guy over here is an amateur, okay, knowing that this amateur is getting paid, then nobody wants to see the amateur. They want to see if this guy is earning his $450 million. So at that point, we lose out.
I wanted to make a comment that we did have professional track and field here back in the late 60s and 70s. And actually, I signed a pro contract back then, and I jumped against some great jumpers. However, corporate did not buy into it, but we did. Some of us lost our amateur status and signed on with professional track and field in this country. And one of the great athletes that signed on was Bob Hayes, who was playing with Dallas Cowboys at the time, who was one of the main event runners who ran 60 meters indoors. So I want to say that we did have professional track and field in this country. However, we can go back to what Roger said. Corporate sponsorships have got to be strong in this country as one of the assets that I think are with other professional sports is corporate sponsorship.
And I'm going to say this too as well. I believe that is absolutely an avenue of Mr. Beeman, but I also think you have to have individuals who have the money and the desire to put behind something, an event. I look at what Paul Doyle did indoor season, right? The American Track League. Now, he created that league several years ago, outdoor, to create a different atmosphere, environment. DJs, the fans coming down by the track and on a distance race, bringing them on the track and giving just the runners 3 or 4 lanes to compete in. Post-event concert. He created a package of entertainment and excitement built into the world of track and field, made for television. Now, there's a unique way to approach offering a meet, and you just need, maybe it's not the corporate sponsorship, but maybe it's a couple of individuals who believe in the product and see what they can do with it. Continuing just to look at the Coca-Colas of the world and all the major Olympic sponsors may not be the answer anymore. It may not be. It may be individuals with enough money who are wealthy enough to put behind and creating a series. And Paul Doyle's meet, if you ask any athlete, I was at 3 of the 4 meets, they were more than appreciative and grateful to have competition because of COVID and the whole year being out of whack and the Olympics delayed. People want competition and they want to get a chance to shine. And you saw what happened, right? American record after American record after American record, world leading time, all these things were happening. So I just think that we have to think differently, speak differently, and find a different way to approach showing the talent that's in this country, and not just showing it during the Olympic year, but after the year. And then the most important thing, which has always frustrated me as a journalist, which is why I got into media training, is athletes have to learn how to articulate their story. Roger just did that for us over the first 20 minutes, talking about his journey in the sport. We need to know those journeys from everybody, because ultimately when people pick up their remote control to watch the Olympics, they probably don't know anything about bobsled, luge, skeleton, about track and field, swimming, diving, but they get connected to people, human beings, the story, their journey. And that's why they come back and watch. And that's why some companies or people get behind sponsoring athletes and events. So we need to think about just a new approach, and especially in this post-COVID pandemic era, when we get out of that, broadcasting is going to change in terms of infrastructure and money that's going to be spent on production costs. There's a whole new formatted way we got to think about this. So that's just kind of my thought on it from my experience in television. And I hope that everybody here can think about, how are we going to find the next Charles, Roger, Kenny, Bob, Jackie, all these folks? How are we going to find these folks? It's going to be from not just the grassroots through the collegiate system, but they're going to need exposure. They're going to need training, preparation, couple them up with the right sponsorship deals and the right packages of television events, and boom, there we go. That's just kind of my thought on it. Another one here.
Lewis,
Go
I have
ahead.
a question for Skeets and Raj.
Yes.
Hey, give me your opinion on Grant Holloway. He just broke the indoor world record. I've watched this young man since he was in college, and phenomenal athlete. I just want to hear your thoughts on you two, your thoughts on his performance and what you think his future looks like if he continues to stay healthy.
Well,
Go ahead.
I know, I know Grant. Obviously, phenomenal athlete. I'm not surprised by what he has done in the short period of time that he's been a professional. You know, when you think about the 7:29 time that he just ran, I mean, that's almost, if he can maintain that speed, that's a sub 1280 outdoors.
Yeah. Yes.
The only challenge I've had with Grant, and I'm sure he's working on it, we'll see, is that he hasn't been able to transfer that energy throughout the whole race. And he runs into fatigue because he runs so fast. He's 6'3", he's strong, runs 44, 43 in the 400, and low 20s in the 200 meters. So he's got all the tools. Hurling technique is not an issue. I think it's just a matter of him learning how to transfer his energy throughout the race. And he's going to be around for a very long time. Great kid, positive kid, God-fearing kid. And it's just what our sport needs. I mean, and for me, I'm so proud because he's a hurdler. I love to see hurdlers, tearing up the track, defying the odds, breaking records like that. So he has a bright future, and I wish nothing but the best for him.
I concur with Ronaldo.
And he long jump well too.
Yeah, he's a great long jumper.
Yes. I concur with Ronaldo with everything that he said. I had an opportunity to actually watch Grant participate while he was at the University of Florida, while I was at UCF. I had an opportunity to be right there on the track and talk with his coach about some of the things that he was doing, some of the things that he needed to work on at that time. And to see how he's evolved into now this super stud is just absolutely amazing. Like Ronaldo, after watching him for the first time, I'm not surprised with his success either, because I saw so much in him when I was just watching him running. He was just so raw. Okay, so the only thing that he had to work on that I actually shared with his coach was just getting his foot down off of that hurdle. That's why he ran into difficulty the last 5. Because when he get that speed built up, as Terrence Trammell and Tony Dees did, those guys who are running, 10 zeros and 100, sometimes you can't handle it. But I watched this young man run that 7:29, and from what I saw, he still had that slightly bent lead leg, which he's stepping down off that hurdle. So I'm looking to see some amazing things outdoors. And as far as his longevity in the sport, this is a young kid, man. This is a young kid as I was. So he could be the first to win 3. So when he do it, you heard it first right here, man. So, hey, somebody else to join the club. It's been a long time since that happened, and I think that he's going to be the next to do it.
Yeah, he is dynamic. We had him on my esports show a couple of weeks ago before he went over on this trip and broke the world record. And he just talked. You could just feel the passion oozing through the conversation. That he loves what he does, and he seems to be with the perfect coach with Mouse Holloway, who is bringing him along. Not only as a great hurdler, but also as a great young man. And so there seems to be a real excellent partnership there with those two. But Grant Holloway is some talent. He when he won the Worlds in Doha, he came off the track, he came up the steps and did a great interview. And then he looked up and he saw the other journalists behind me and he said, "Do I have to go talk to them?" I said, "Grant, yes." I said, "This is what you train for, man. This is the moment. Talk to all of them if it takes all night. You don't leave the stadium now. Go talk to everybody because this is what you want to do." And he did. And then he was invited to our NBC booth and he did an excellent job up there, just showed his personality. And those are the moments I think that put him on the map, not just in terms of performance, but personality. And he's got all of it. So I agree with you guys. He'll do well, not just as an athlete, but also as a performer. We are getting late on time here, and I don't want to hold Roger too long. We always come to this moment where it's like, man, we don't want to stop. Kenny Anderson, I did see your question asking you about franchising and track and field, and why don't we highlight the Texas high school and California meets as a start, the Arcadia meet. Great points. It all comes down to somebody thinking that it's a priority and putting some production money behind that. It costs money to put them on TV. So I think that's probably part of the issue, but I think there are a lot more high school meets that should be on TV. But as I said before, the model for broadcasting events has changed, as it has for basketball, what have you. You're seeing announcers calling games from studios, home, what have you. So they found a way to broadcast events without sending everybody out. So now they're going to try to reformat a lot of things to save money. So maybe some of these meets can make it to air. And I think it's an interesting time for broadcasting and production right now. I'm very interested to see what happens there. All right. I don't think we'd be right if we didn't show this last and final moment. Skeets, if you're okay with that, I'd love to show Roger's world record time in Zurich. And this
I'm
was
good.
just, what's that?
I'm good. We both broke records in Zurich. So that's cool.
Okay. I'm just saying that out of absolute respect for both of you. But this
remember, I wasn't in the race.
I know you weren't.
Keith, you broke yours you set yours 8 years plus, right?
Yes, I did it in 81. He did it 89.
Yeah. Right. Well, I tell you, this was just one of the craziest things ever, because a lot of us were on the track. Like I said, I was getting ready to wrap at the 800. And for those of you who never went to Zurich, Letzigrund Stadium, the old Letzigrund Stadium, was packed with people. There were these metal signs that went around the stadium, and the people would lean over and slap the signs and say the name of the athlete. Roger, y'all remember that? You remember that?
I do
Jackie?
remember it. I do remember it.
Banging on the
Jackie
Joyner Kersey or Roger Kingdom, or
there's so much energy in that place.
Unbelievable. You knew every year
at the American record there.
Right. And Mr. Brugger had the biggest budget on the planet, and it was like the Olympics in one night, right?
Yep.
Every year.
That's correct.
Every night.
Is the one thing that I want to say about that race, okay?
What?
So that everybody would know. All right. I was so geeked up and pumped up because of the games that was being played by my friend Colin Jackson. He was supposed to be in lane 4. But when he switched to lane 1 so that he could get away from me and make me press and not catch him, because the two of us were battling for the #1 spot in the world, okay, then that really set me off. The other thing that people don't realize, I was up all night long. I could not sleep. I had severe allergies. Doug Padilla was my roommate. And he, after I broke the world record, said, Roger, I don't know how in the world you did that. I felt so bad for you all night not being able to breathe. Okay. So I had no idea that that was going to happen. But to break the world record in the same lane, in the same place that the guy that I idolized in high school did, it gets no better than that.
Oh my gosh. All right. That's a heck of a setup. So let me play this, and I'm gonna play it more than once, so don't worry. Here we go. Please mute you. I hear my friend back there calling an NBA game. Please mute that. Can you guys hear it?
Yeah. Foster also roasted earlier
Yes.
this outdoor season.
Yes.
That was pretty early on, wasn't it, Larry? Yes. But you did it decisively, though, Ian. Let's see if he can do it decisively.
So let's look at the lane assignments again.
He's down at 3.
So there's Colin. He's in lane 1.
A lot of heat.
Valley of Cuba at 2. What's that?
A lot of heat right there, boy.
Yeah, I mean, this Olympic final. Jared of Great Britain at 3. Roger, you're in 4. Greg, look at this. Greg Foster, Tony Campbell, and Jack Pierce. Oh my goodness.
And out, and it's a real rivalry burning up between those two. And Foster also roasted earlier this outdoor season, Kingdom at a race in Los Angeles. That was pretty early on, wasn't it, Larry? Yes. But you did it decisively, though, Ian. Let's see if he can do it decisively tonight. Kingdom is certainly flying at the moment. The world's best time this year. Just the other day, 13.10. Second time of asking that.
Well, they always do. You know.
This time they do get away, and Jackson's very quickly away in his first to rise on the inside there in the red strip. In second place, here comes Kingdom. It's between Jackson and Kingdom. Is it off so often? Kingdom comes powering through now. Jackson's hitting the hurdles. Kingdom is an emphatic.
Boom!
Jackson second place. Campbell is third, and it's 12.89.
Amazing.
Look at that.
One last tidbit about that race. I'll be honest with you. I can tell you every race that I've ever run, what people sound like, what I felt like, when I made my moves, when I hit a hurdle. But in that world record race, I blacked out as soon as the gun fired. And I can't tell you anything to this day that happened before the 7th hurdle. I don't remember anything.
pause and out.
You don't remember
And it's
any
a
of it.
real rivalry
I don't
burning up
remember
between those two.
nothing about that
Foster
race
also roasted
before the
earlier
seventh
this
hurdle.
outdoor season,
I remember when I got to
King
the
Los
seventh
Angeles.
hurdle,
That
it's
was
like,
pretty
wow,
early
I'm
on.
too close. I got to go up. And then that put me in a position where all of a sudden now
If he can do it
I
decisively
shaved
tonight,
the
Kingdom is
8th and the
certainly
9th
flying
one
at the moment.
and
The world's best time
clobbered
this
the
year.
10th one
Just the other day, 13.10.
because I was going so fast.
Second time of asking then.
Yeah, you were flying. Got to see it one more time.
And this time they do get away, and Jackson's very quickly away in his first arise on the inside there in the red strip. In second place, here comes Kingdom. It's between Jackson and Kingdom, as it has been so often. Kingdom comes powering through now. Jackson's hitting the hurdles. Kingdom is an emphatic winner. Jackson second place.
One of the things that Ronaldo Niemeyer said that I always remembered many, many years ago, and this is when he was actually really balling out. He said that sometime in order to be successful in the hurdles, you got to be a little bit out of control. When you lose control, sometimes that's when you're at your best, because right then you're just reacting. And sure enough, I was out of control in that race, man. I was completely out of control. I felt like I was going to fall over.
Unbelievable. And speaking of out of control, Roger, so I was in the grass just past the finish line, waiting to rabbit the 800. Okay, I am sure that I saw myself in this in the link that Charles put on LinkedIn. But I came in that group as well, just to touch greatness. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And then after the stadium finally calmed down, I went out on the track to rabbit this 800, and my instructions would take the first 450 seconds. You know what I came to the quarter in?
What was
48 flat. 48
wow.
flat.
Wow.
And I was in a race.
You were in the race. Where you at?
I was in a race.
I was so
Roger,
jacked up, man.
Roger, I watched that race from the front. I was just waiting. I just see you coming.
Yeah.
I was right there.
Yeah, we
And
were
after
all in the grass past the finish line on the right, waiting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that race and the celebration afterwards, because so many people were cheering, held up the meet for at least 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It held up the meet.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get people to settle down and everything else. While I'm taking my victory lap, people are running out there celebrating with me and so forth. So it held up the meet. I was like, we got to go. We got to go. We got to go.
Yeah. Everything was like, Philip, you were there, weren't you? You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that race. It was awesome. And you know what? Back in the days when Res Brücker was the meeting director, it didn't matter. Yeah. If we started at 12 o'clock, like the last race, it didn't matter. And the TV station, they stayed live.
Yeah.
So that changed. Right now, you have to schedule, you have to be finished at 10, and everything has to be like on point, on second. But then, like in the 80s and the 90s, we always had a delay of about 30, 45 minutes or maybe an hour.
Right.
Still, everybody stayed in the stadium and nobody left early.
Right. And the schedule was off because of all these celebrations, these big moments.
Yeah,
I mean, for people who didn't witness it, every year the Zurich meet was like the Olympics in one night. Everybody was there. The A and B sections were both ridiculous. And that was just one of the most special moments for anybody. But of course, for you, Roger.
I remember Johnny Gray run a world leading time in the B race.
Yeah.
Right.
Many times.
Yeah. And Charles Austin still has the stadium record.
Yep.
Oh, he still does. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
There we go.
2 meters and 40.
There we go.
And
Roger, have you been
every year in Zurich, world records being broken every year.
Yeah. Yep.
I saw the year before was Butch Reynolds. I was sit down, look, Butch Reynolds came. The following year was Roger Kingdom and so on. I said, I have seen how the record in Zurich. From 84 that I start in 83, I started running in Zurich all the way to the end in 2000. Every year it was a world record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just
Zurich is crazy, man.
Hey, Lewis, take that one last question. She doesn't talk very much, so we want to get her in. Natalie's question.
Okay, is it on the chat here?
Yeah.
All righty. And so thank you so much, Natalie. And the question is how do you find motivation when you've come from everything you've done? How do you still find motivation? Great question.
You know what? My grandfather taught me when I was a young man. He said you should never be satisfied until they box you up and put you on the ground. So at this point, as I said, throughout the whole day, once you achieve one goal that you set for yourself, the first thing that you need to do is assess where you are and now set another goal for yourself. So it took me a little time after winning the Super Bowl. I'm not going to lie, I had to sit there for a while. But the only thing that you could do is to go back now and to try to win another one. And in doing that, that pursuit is laying a firm foundation for others to follow. So many guys look at your story and look at where you are and say that I could do the same thing. So I think that that's the most important thing. And if you want to find my motivation is doing whatever I could do with my life is to help that next person.
Yeah, and you have done that many, many times. Go ahead, Charles.
Jackie and Bob, I want to hear what they have to say on that. Jackie, and Bob, as well as Keith.
Jackie, go ahead.
On the motivation?
Just about what Roger said about finding that motivation, after you've done so many great things, how do you still find motivation to continue to do other things that are great and important?
I agree with what Roger was saying, because I think if you're in it, you can't be thinking about what you did yesterday. And for me, the motivation always came, how could I see myself doing better and put myself in a better position? So even when it was on the track, when others were saying, oh, you're the greatest, you can do this. But if I'm gonna be out there, I want to be out there in the best shape of my life, knowing that I have a target on me, and I'm not gonna give you an opportunity to beat me because I am in the mindset of I don't have to work hard anymore. I can just come out here when I want to, don't listen to my coaches. That itself give you motivation, that knowing that somebody can beat you at any given time when you're not prepared and ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Great. Bob?
Well, after those few minutes, like Roger explained, he was, he went nuts. He was, like me, I had to pinch myself to say that, I was going to wake up and this was going to be a wonderful dream. However, when I walked straight to the, after the finals was over, I walked straight to where you get your award, stood up on the stand, and I asked myself, will I be motivated? What do I do now? I mean, what is left for me? Because I started running track when I was 7 and 8 years old. So I said, man, the challenge had to change. I had to look for another type of peak experience in my life. I thought about going back to be a triple jumper, and then I said, well, maybe I need to look further and go back to school, finish, get my degree, and at that time there was nothing else to do but to go back to school and then possibly get a decent enough job and so forth. And so I was kind of motivated in a different way. I just felt that was a peak experience in the Olympic Games, and that I needed to move into a different area. And I started to get my act together in terms of college and getting a degree, and then move on to some other peak experiences. Peak experiences can go from anywhere from having a child to working on your master's degree or doing other kinds of peak experiences that I think will be just as great as winning a gold medal. So I had to move on to do some other additional things in my life to at least make me feel like it was a peak experience.
Excellent. And Ronaldo, what are your thoughts on achieving great moments and then finding that motivation to achieve the next ones?
It's so ironic because I've always been one that was uncomfortable being the focus of attention. When you live in that moment, there's nothing that anyone can say or do to recapture the moment when it happens. You've lived it, you breathed it. And so I didn't need to read the newspapers or have people put me up on a pedestal. So it was an awkward situation. Although I appreciated it, it was awkward for me to be the talk, the center. But the thing I try to do and have done ever since, trying to pay it forward, is that a gentleman by the name of Larry Thomas, who was my 9th grade math teacher, sowed a seed into me from the very beginning and said, if you work real hard, you get an athletic scholarship to college. And at that point, I knew I wanted to go to college. I didn't really know financially how I was going to do it. And because he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, it motivated me to try to strive to be as good as I could be and see what happens. And so today, and years later, since I've retired, I continue to try to be the light in other young people that are coming behind me, to sow a seed of inspiration, admiration into them that might lift them, because you never know how many other people like myself who just need someone to see something in them, you know, to speak life into them. And I think that's what I try to do. Is not so much about my accomplishments. It's about maybe that young person just needed a pick-me-upper today, and have me say something that's positive that could forever change the direction of their life in that moment.
That's it. I think that's what many of us should be thinking about as we moved into these other phases of our lives, is sowing that seed. Well said, Skeets. The last word, Charles, goes to you, and then I'll thank Roger, and we'll close it out.
Hey, everyone, thanks again for sharing your time. This has been another tremendous Zoom conference. Roger, thank you so much for taking your time. Skeets, for you jumping on. Jose, everyone, I really appreciate it, and looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. And Charles, I will always say this, man. We have so many great ideas, but making that great idea into reality is what you did. So I'm forever grateful that you called me. We discussed it and got everybody together. And here we are on our 6th episode. And I think we'll be doing many, many more worthwhile discussions and programming here that we hopefully can expand at some point. So with that, Roger
Louis,
Kingdom, yes.
Don't end it, because I want to ask this question.
Okay.
I asked.
Roger, you're not gonna get out of here today, man.
Listen.
Listen, we did it one time. I think a couple of weeks ago, or last month, and the question was to the panel: would you attend compete in the Olympics for 2021?
Oh, you're asking Roger if he was competing, then he'd go to the games in Tokyo in 2021?
Charles, I'm asking.
If I was a competitive athlete still today, would I compete? Is that the question?
Yes, in 21, the Tokyo Games, exactly.
Absolutely, I would. And the reason I would is because I feel at this point, they would take the necessary precaution is to keep all the athletes safe. And you know what? The games must go on. Right now, in the midst of all of this that's going on in the world and our country itself, okay, we need something to pick us up. And sports has been that thing to keep everybody motivated and keep everybody going rather than staying at home going stir crazy. Being at home right now is causing so many problems. Domestic violence is going up. Just the list of all the statistics of the bad things that are happening. But the only one good thing that's been happening out of this is sports, because people can turn on the TV and they can see that live and it's not a rerun. The only other thing is family bonding. It gives families an opportunity now to get to know each other during this time.
All right, Jackie. Who's going next? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, having been the victim of a boycott, I know the aftermath, and it's the utopia of our sport, the Olympic Games. That's what the motivation is for. That's what the target is for, and that's what you ultimately are remembered for. So if you have a chance, all but for it be a war, I would say take every opportunity to go, because you never know if you'll get another chance to go.
Right. Great point, especially based on your experience, Ronaldo. Jackie, would you go to the 21 Olympic Games in Tokyo with all the stuff going on?
I told Bob last time, Yes, I think Roger said it best. You do all, I think they're gonna protect them and all the precautionary things. And if you all can, it's your choice, get the vaccine. I got my second shot coming up on March 4th. So whatever, they train so hard, and Renato said it best, is that we do not have these games. It's bad enough, you see the diminish of our sport dissipating, slowly, and the athletes can't travel abroad to the European meets, and then we struggle here in America. But a good saving grace is you see what they're doing on the collegiate level, and the American Track League was very good. But more importantly, Bob, yes.
Jackie's in. So
I would go too. I
you
would
would
go
go.
too. And hey people, I would go too. And take what Ronaldo said it. I'm gonna give you a perfect example. The boycott Olympic game in 1980, Italy didn't go, but Pietro Menea went anyway. He didn't miss the opportunity. And 4 years later, someone called Carl Lewis come along. So he got his gold medal in 1980. It was the Olympic champs. If he followed his country and they boycotted, he might haven't gone there. And he missed the opportunity. So
Yep, it's a great point.
So,
Pietro Meneo, that's right. Held that
Pietro
200
Meneo.
meter time for
Yeah.
a long time. That's right.
there you go.
Well, very good. All right, Bob, you got that question in. Good stuff. And we know now that everybody would go, and I think anybody on this panel would go. That's for
Charles,
sure.
did you answer?
Yeah, I answered last time.
Okay.
And it's a yes, right? All right.
Well, now that we have all the vaccines out there, and seeing some positive results with that, I can take that chance once I got vaccinated.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm waiting on my first one. So once we, like Jackie, we all vaccinated up, then we can go. But that hopefully will happen soon. Well, listen, everybody, it's just been incredible, awesome experience and chat and discussion, and we've gotten a lot of great wisdom, knowledge, storytelling, and experiences from Roger Kingdom. We're grateful for that. So, Roger, once again, from all of us, thank you so much for being here, and we just appreciate it all. All righty.
In closing, I'd like to thank you, man, for you and Charles both for having me here, for the question. It was a great opportunity for me to actually touch base with some of my old friends that I have not seen for years or heard from. So I really appreciate it, Charles. Thanks for actually introducing me and bringing me on.
I appreciate you, bro.
Absolutely. Well, we thank him for being here. You also have a thank you from Carlos Jackson, who writes in the chat, this is an awesome panel from one hurdler to another one. Well done. And thanks for the nuggets you left. Thanks, Charles, for the mind to put this panel together. We all agree with that. Same thing from Jen Corbin. And yes, Philip, I can stay afterwards to chat for just a few minutes. So with that, as always, I have to thank this Olympic leaping legend panel, Jackie. We missed Kenny today with technical issues, but he'll be back. Of course, Bob and Charles, and then Roger Kingdom. And if any of you all have missed previous segments that we've done 5 before, this is 6. Charles is going to offer those links, I believe, on Facebook. So hopefully those will come soon.
LinkedIn.
What's that?
Facebook and LinkedIn. I'll put them
Facebook. Okay, you'll put them up on Facebook and LinkedIn, and then you can see the replays of these. And then will, of course, he'll be announcing probably within a few days of the final Sunday of the month who our next guest will be. So with that, make sure you check out Charles Austin 96 on Instagram, Charles Austin on Facebook and LinkedIn. And we also want to know what you think about this series. Give us some comments on LinkedIn or Facebook, and give us some specifics as to what this has done for you, what it means for you, and do you look forward to seeing it every month? And we really want to know that. So with that, once again, we hope all of you stay safe, stay healthy. We look forward to connecting again soon. And thanks for joining us. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Nice to see you again, Roger.
Bye-bye.
Hey,
See you,
and for all
Roger.
of our friends down in Brazil, one of the greatest nuggets I think he said, as you guys try to figure out what to do, sow the seed. It may be to 1 to 20 to 50 to 100. And I know you guys are trying to figure out a way to help kids have an opportunity through sports. So just sow the seed.
Absolutely.
And keep working on those grassroots programs